Welcome to the Wednesday, September 7th, 2022 Garrison Board of Education regular workshop meeting, now held in our renovated Learning Commons. Dusty, would you like to call the meeting to order?
I'll call the roll.
Call the roll. Sorry.
That's okay. Jocelyn Apicello.
Here.
David Gelber.
Excused.
Madeline Julian.
Here.
Courtney McCarthy.
Here.
Kent Schott.
Here.
Matthew Spicer.
Here.
Sarah Tormey.
Here. Next we have accept agenda changes. Does anyone have any proposed changes to this evening's agenda as presented? Okay. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby accept the agenda as presented. May I have a motion, please?
Seconded.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Nays? Abstentions? All right, next we come to President's Remarks. I will be very brief and just say welcome back to school to our community. I want to thank our teachers, our administrative staff, and all of our staff for working through the end of our construction. I know we still have some last things to finish up, items that are going to be outstanding, a little bit of a punch list going forward, but we really appreciate everyone's flexibility with this opening of school, and I'm very impressed we could pull it all together. I know I was in here, I think, a few days before opening. It's amazing the transformation in this building. So thank you to everyone, and thank you again, teachers, for your patience in getting in here and getting set up, and wish you all a great new year. I'm going to turn it over to Carl.
Sure. Welcome back, everyone, to the new school year. And I just have two topics that I'd like to cover in my opening remarks. The first is our superintendent's conference days. We met on August 31st and September 1st for our first two full superintendent's conference days. For some teachers, it was their first time back in the building since June, particularly the elementary teachers. So there was a lot of work to do. But we went over our annual goals, our strategic coherence plan goals. We had to review new COVID protocols with Nurse Melissa. Ms. Amig and I covered curriculum and instruction topics. Also, our Envisions mathematics program, we did a follow-up training for staff that has already been trained, and for some it was a first-time training, some of our new staff. We also had Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES regional safety coordinator team here for safety training. That's a mandate. Then we also spent a half day reviewing IEPs and 504s. That is a legal requirement, but every teacher of a child with an IEP or 504 got a full review of their background, their goals, and their needs. So that was very productive. And then we built in a lot of classroom organization time. Like I said, the teachers, unfortunately, were not able to come in prior to August 31st because of construction. The elementary staff in particular. So we did build in some time for them to get into their classrooms, organize classroom libraries. They were thrilled to no longer be working out of boxes. Last year, many of our teachers were shuffled around at least once or twice. Some of their materials were boxed away. They didn't have the materials and the shelves at their fingertips, but that has all changed. This year, the rooms look beautiful. The teachers worked incredibly hard, and I thank each and every one of them. Opening school on Tuesday was incredibly smooth. Always a few little tweaks that need to happen, but we launched our pre-K. We have 11 students total. A few more did express interest, but for various reasons, some did not officially enroll over the summer, but we do have 11 attending. That is working out well. Just to give you some enrollment numbers, I'll go through every grade because there have been some changes since the end of the school year. We have two sections of K, 32 total, so there's 16 in each. First grade is 21 students, second grade 25 students, third grade 19, fourth grade 22, fifth grade 21, sixth and seventh both have 25 students, and eighth grade has 28, but they are in two sections. For most classes, there may be a few special area classes where they combine. The new schedule so far, we believe is working out well. You may recall we used to have a 9-period school day. We reduced that to 8 periods, and what we did was all of our core academic periods at the middle school level now are 51 minutes as opposed to 42 minutes. So 9 extra minutes, nearly 30 hours a year. It does add up. I went around and polled all of our teachers. This is something that the teachers were in support of, but I wanted to hear from them after 2 days of teaching with longer periods, and comments like, I no longer need to rush through my content. It's 100% better. We can now delve deeper into topics. The students are more calm and focused. I feel like my teaching is the most effective it's been in 3 years because of the longer class periods. So that was the initial feedback from teachers, and it's really positive. Of course, it's only 2 days in, but we do stand behind that decision, and we think it really will help us with our academic programs and help students make that growth and progress that we want to see them make. The new spaces, this one in particular has been wonderful. It is not fully furnished yet, but students are in here every day and enjoying this space, and we're still working out more details about utilization, but it is being used on a daily basis. But the new art room is open, the new band room is open, our cafeteria is open, and of course the Learning Commons, and also the health office. I want to just point out that we've expanded the health office, it was relocated. There's an interior bathroom, which may not seem like a big deal, but it is. In the past, students had to leave the health office if they needed to use a restroom. It's much more spacious, and there's privacy. So if a child is ill and needs to rest, there are curtains that can be drawn, and it's been much, much better for our children, and of course, Nurse Melissa is very pleased as well. Also, we're trying something new. We're doing quarterly classes. So subjects at the middle school level like STEAM, art, theater, debate are all happening as in a quarterly fashion, which means the students will go for 10 weeks and then go on to that next topic. So this is something that we think will be beneficial and an improvement, but I will get feedback from our staff after they settle into those courses a little bit longer. They worked hard over the summer to develop a lot of upgraded curriculum for these courses. The music program is off to a good start as well. Of course, last year we had some concerns. We are using the same artist-in-residence model. We brought back all of our music teachers. They're here. We have our elementary band, our middle school band, chorus, and theater. And the band numbers, I think, went up by about 25%. Which was really impressive. So good thing we have a new band room, and it's much more spacious because we have a lot of students excited and interested in performing. So that's just a quick snapshot of the first 2 days. I'm happy to take any questions. No?
Okay.
Okay. Then I would like to just turn it over to Joe briefly to talk about facilities and transportation, 2 areas he oversees.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to first thank all of the transportation and facilities staff because it really has made the opening go very well. There are things that don't necessarily work the way you want to right off the bat, but in general, we had a very, very good opening. And like Carl mentioned, the facilities team really did a big lift the last week before school started to try to get all of the pieces in place for the opening of school. As for transportation, transportation has been going relatively well. We have some issues here and there, but it was a good opening for transportation. And as issues come up we deal with them. We did try to make sure that all students are routed to a bus, even if they typically get driven into school. We have everyone routed anyway, just in case they do want to ride. And we do notice that the ridership actually is a lot more than we were seeing in prior years. So I think people are more comfortable riding the bus, and they're riding the bus, which is good. Another thing, when we switch over to the facilities, we just did the switch over today to the new phone system. So when you dial in, it's a new, there's a new greeting message. It's the same basic layout in terms of the main numbers that are like hot buttons, but there'll be new extensions established for everyone. But that switch over happened this morning, and it went pretty well. As for the rest of the construction project, there's still a number of tuning things to be done with the HVAC equipment. Most of the units and everything are running, but there's some testing and balancing and optimization that has to take place, as well as turnover of the controls of the system to the district so that myself and the rest of the team can make sure everyone's comfortable. So there'll be another week or two here of tuning and balancing, and then we should be able to control it to the most part to everyone's likes. I mean, that's always a challenge, but I think we're on the home stretch there. There's a number of punch list items that will continue into the future. Like the doors will be into the future, as well as the entrance that, as you come to the building, you see that the new entrance is not completed yet, but we're still using the existing entrance that we had since the beginning, and we're fine with that until that gets up. There's some glass and some aluminum that still is needed to be received in order for them to install that storefront, and that's what it's waiting for. We are in the process of getting the last two bathrooms up and running. The plumbers are here tonight, and they'll probably be here for a couple more nights to finish two of the multi-use bathrooms. But there are a number of additional bathrooms, 4 of them, that were added since the project started, and so we haven't had any problems not having those bathrooms in use for the start of school. So there's a number of plumbing items left to be done, a number of HVAC items left to be done. I think there's a number of electrical pieces for some change order work for outlets in this room, and a number of other places where there's a few items left. The new lighting and the sound system for the stage. The lighting is installed. It's not all programmed yet, but it's in place. The sound system is installed and it's working, and it even has assistive listening devices for those that are impaired. So it's quite a nice system that's in place. So the opening went relatively smooth, and we have a good team here, and it makes our jobs easier. So.
And Joe, the field, the new field behind our building?
The field, if you go back to the playground in the back, you'll notice that the sod is not doing well. That is an issue that we are working through with our architect as far as the condition of that field, and we are going to be holding Meyer responsible to fix that to the best that we can, because that doesn't look like that field is surviving, so that needs some remediation work.
Great. Thank you, Joe. Do we have any questions for Joe? Madeline, go ahead. Just speak into your mic for me.
Thank you, Joe. For the heating system, will the building management system and all of the commissioning be done before the cold weather comes, and will the staff be trained once they take control, will they be trained, and will they know how to maintain this new system? Because if it's not maintained as per the manufacturer recommendation, right, it can mean that it might have a shorter life. So will they have the proper training for it?
Yes, that's
a
requirement in order for them to turn over the system to us. We need to have training on running the building management system, and I believe that we will also have to get some additional training on HVAC and refrigeration basics in order for us to be able to diagnose and to get help when we need it. We have the first year obviously is covered with the manufacturer and all of the on-site, but after that, obviously, we have to have our systems in place. I feel confident with myself and the team that we have, that we can maintain the system once it's been turned over to us. Right now, I don't have visibility of the system as of yet, but the architect does, and the manufacturer does, and they're still putting pieces in place. There's still some balancing and some control valves and some items that aren't installed yet and need to be installed in order for them to finish their balancing.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Joe. All right, I'm going to keep us going, and next we are moving on to board communications and presentations. We're going to begin this evening with a property tax exemption discussion. I added this in here as it's come up with the Westchester Putnam School Boards Associations, and I believe it'll be coming to a lot of districts. The goal of tonight's discussion is to identify what this new tax exemption is and to see what questions we need answered in order to continue our discussion on this topic. We're not looking to reach any conclusions this evening. It may also be helpful to identify what our process might be, including maybe we'd like to have a public hearing on this issue in order to hear from the public on it as well. With the hope.
We just need to move.
Everybody wave your hands. Okay.
We'll adjust that.
It's a very dramatic discussion now on property tax exemption. So I'm going to turn it over to Joe in a minute, but the basic outline, you all had an article on it from the low HUD, but it is seniors who qualify for, I believe, Enhanced Star. The previous limit was $30,000 of income per year. We could opt to take it up as high as $50,000 per year. There is no funding, however, from the state, is my understanding. So that's a brief presentation. Joe, I'm going to let you take it away with what more information you have.
Wait 1 second. Is it possible to put the TV on? The white behind this sort of yeah. Thank you.
Yes, so this property tax exemption works very similar to the veterans exemption that was adopted several years ago. So essentially, it applies a tax break to people that meet the criteria for whatever the exemption is, at the expense of the rest of the taxable property in the jurisdiction. So it basically redistributes the tax amounts around between the taxpayers. It doesn't have any material effect on the school district in terms of the amount of money that the school district can raise. It just changes the share of the tax burden from one taxpayer to another. So there is a current income limit of $30,000 for a 50% reduction in your taxes. So what that would mean is if you had a tax bill of $5,000, it would be $2,500 if you qualified, and then that obligation of your $2,500 would be split amongst all the rest of the taxable properties that are within this jurisdiction. The eligibility would depend upon a number of things, including what is considered part of the calculation, because it depends on whether or not they include distributions from IRAs as a part of your income, or any so there's it's not known necessarily what is going to calculate into the 50,000. So that has to be decided. That's on the state level, and then on the county has to adopt it the towns have to adopt it, and then the boards, the school boards would have to adopt it. So that's kind of the progression. If it occurs like what happened for the veterans exemption, I would imagine as if the county does proceed, then potentially we would have taxpayers show up at the board meetings and advocate for it. So I imagine that would take place. What I can say as far as the Enhanced STAR is a program that's the closest thing to this that I have numbers on, and there are 80 properties in the Garrison School District that have Enhanced STAR. Probably some subset of those may qualify for this, but obviously it's a much different amount of tax exemption with this 50% than the Enhanced STAR is not. On a lot of cases isn't very close to what this number would represent. So it is something that the board can, what if the county and the two towns, so Putnam Valley and Phillipstown, if they both decide as well to do this, then the school district can decide to do this. So I think there is a lot of questions that we probably want to know as to, how many people would qualify, what are the parameters that calculate into the 50,000, and how will we have to administer it and do this. I did speak with the assessor's office, and essentially this can be a big project for the towns and the school districts to implement. But that will all depend on what the requirements are and who has to verify the information for people to qualify. So it is.
Who verifies the STAR now? Do you have to?
The state does.
Oh,
So-
this would kick it down to the districts to do?
It may.
Okay.
It may. It depends on what income information is used to qualify. So if it is something that comes from a tax return that the district can get access to, maybe it's not that complicated, but we don't know that yet. So there's a lot of questions that school districts and towns will have in order for us to figure out how it would work. But essentially, New York State isn't providing any money for this. It essentially will shift the tax burden from one taxpayer to another, and that's a choice of the towns, the counties, and the school districts to make.
Madeline?
And this has no impact on our budget or what we collect, right? We still.
None. It'll just change the tax bill of one taxpayer that qualifies. That the rest of that money is made up on the others.
Jump in, Matt. Go ahead.
Look at all at wealth, or it just looks at income?
It looks at income. So and that's one of the things that was mentioned by the assessor's office, that there are a number of people that qualify for Enhanced STAR, but because the IRA distributions are exempt from the calculation, they may have a lot of money coming in that doesn't fit into the formula, and they benefit. And then there are many people that don't have that and really are just getting by, and the exemption makes sense. But it just depends on how the state is going to calculate it.
80 properties currently have Enhanced STAR out of, what's our total?
I think it's something like 3,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if the county decides to not adopt, this is a non-issue.
It's a non-issue, yeah.
What's the time frame? Do you think that these questions? Obviously, there's a lot of questions
swirling, and when is it going to the county?
I think that the county is a discussion that's going to probably happen before December, because it would be they probably have things that they have to get in place in order for their budgets to be adopted in April 1st. Is they have the same time frame as the state does with their budgets. So our deadline will most likely be after that.
Thanks.
Do we have any other questions that we want Joe to research, or would we like to, now that we're aware, oh, go ahead, Matt.
I gather it doesn't take into account the scale of property at all?
What do you mean by the scale?
Like does the size of the tax being paid on, that doesn't matter?
No, it's just the whatever the income determination is. So you could have a property that has been in your family for generations that maybe it's $20,000 tax bill or something like that, and if the income is under the number, you would get half of that. Burden would be shifted to everyone else.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Right, if we don't have any other questions, it sounds like we can adopt a position where we wait until we see what the county does at this point. And if we have any other questions in the meantime,
Well, just related to that,
yeah.
it's not on a county agenda yet, but when it's on there, would it make sense, if districts want to do it or don't want to do it, depending on what they want, would it make sense to have representation at the meeting to advocate for or against? Meaning, we would probably, if we wanted to do something like that, we'd probably have to have a position
Yes.
by December, or whenever it's going to be on their agenda.
Well, I imagine that you'll have plenty of people that are mobilized to advocate for it.
Right.
So if it's something that the district doesn't want to do, you would definitely need to advocate.
I would still, though, like to send one of us who would like to volunteer our time to go, to be there, even if we're not taking a formal position to hear. I think it would be very important to be, I guess we can watch their meetings afterwards as well, but that might be useful. But I agree, if we do want to take, maybe that's something to think about, if anyone decides want to bring this back and we want to take a formal position on it one way or the other, we could write a letter, we could reach out to our county representation and have further discussion as well. So, all right. If you have any other questions about this at any point, send them to Joe, please. And he'll be doing our research for us. All right. Thank you, Joe, for looking into this.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
everyone, for taking the time to look at it. Next, we're going to move on to the NYSSBA resolutions. As a reminder from last year, this was a really fun meeting where we reviewed them all. Madeline has a good system for us, I think, this year. Madeline, again, will be our voting delegate at the conference. She's all signed up, right, Dusty? Ready to go? Awesome. Okay. So you have a packet of resolutions, which I'm assuming everyone's gone through. So instead of reading through every resolution and seeing how we feel about it, for the ones, and I, again, thank Madeline for this idea, that NYSSBA is supporting, they are recommended by the Resolutions Committee for Adoption, meaning, which is a group of other school board members who have graciously volunteered their time to this Resolutions Committee. If you have any objections or want to discuss further on any of these, to Madeline voting yes on behalf of our district, please let me know the number and we'll start there. And that way I won't read them all. Dusty, these are published in public information, correct? Under the board, on board docs, the resolutions?
They're not in the public, but I can switch it to that easily.
Let's make this public so everyone else can see what these resolutions are, because I'm not going to read every single one tonight. So, who has one they want to talk about first? Grab a microphone. Let's go. This will be fun. What number?
So the, just to explain, the booklet is set up into the first part is the resolution that NYSSBA proposes. So that's resolution number 1 to 31. And then from 31 on are the resolutions that NYSSBA does not propose. So from 1 to 31, I reviewed all of them. I would like to discuss number 15 and number 16, just to understand it a little bit better and see how we would like to vote on it. I will be the voting delegate for the annual business meeting in October.
I'm going to go ahead then and read 15 for everyone. Resolve that the New York State School Boards Association supports the adoption of legislation which would require the New York State Education Department to develop regulations providing oversight over special education, parent, and rules of conduct and enforcement procedures for same. And it looks like in the rationale below, it defines special education parent. This is referencing the parent advocate, I believe, which is someone we assign every year. Carl, maybe you could speak a little bit more to that.
Yeah, I'm just reading a little more closely. Parent advocate, let alone provide for any oversight. Okay, so yeah, Madeline, this is specifically, we're obligated under state ed law to have a parent advocate. At our reorg meeting, we did designate a parent advocate, but this is, I think, speaking to making sure that advocate has certain qualifications to sit at the CSE table and advise parents. So right now, it is pretty much on a volunteer basis. Districts decide, typically they do bring in a parent who is knowledgeable of the CSE process and who can be helpful, but there's no real governance over that. This seems to be indicating, and it's not really detailed. Okay. So I I think it's safe to assume that there would be certain qualifications necessary before you can serve.
So I think my take on it is last year there was a training that was added, and I think we approved for the parent advocate to have additional training as needed in order to attend. For this one, my personal vote will be no, but we can take a vote to see what the rest of the board thinks, and we can proceed with what's decided. And I guess my take on it is that the parents will need help. So having an advocate there is really good. Having an advocate that has the training is also good, and that was in a resolution last year. We don't want to limit we don't want to have a lot of limits on the advocates and then not have them be present in meetings.
I think the way this is written, it doesn't really match with what the rationale states. So I don't know. It seems like it could be used to have some kind of enforcement procedure over a parent, and not just a parent advocate. I don't know. I don't like the wording of the resolution itself.
And also, there's a lot of resolutions, and there's some that that I'd like to look at too that I think are of real value specifically to our district and to other districts. And if there's one similar last year, I feel like you're right, it clouds the issue a bit, because it's not like every resolution that was passed last year suddenly got pushed through and became a priority for our legislature. So having too many doesn't really help them, I don't think. But you were at the meeting, so you might be able to speak to that more too.
Yes, I think that the training is helpful, but having some sort of regulation and limiting the attendance for the advocates, I'm not comfortable with that.
Is anyone opposed to Madeline voting no on this, or have further thoughts? Okay.
So are we voting yes, no?
That's a no. That was,
No.
I'm fine with no.
Okay.
Unless anyone objects?
I don't have
We're
any
good?
reasons to
Okay.
use for
The next one you wanted to look at was 16, is that right?
16, yes.
Okay.
Everyone will hate me for this one, I'm sorry.
Be resolved that the New York State School Boards Association supports legislation at the state level that would allow for school board members to receive a stipend for their work as a trustee.
I think any funds should go to the students.
I disagree with you.
Oh, really?
yeah.
Okay.
So this was brought forth by our neighboring district in Beacon. And I think it's because the stipends that they're looking at and have been issued in other states are pretty small. And what a lot of them are designed to do are cover like childcare and allow for people who otherwise can't come and become school board members to have an option to do so. And I think the one thing I would say is that I would like to see it so that the school boards have a choice to do it. So for our district, perhaps it's not necessary, but other districts may feel that they cannot recruit school boards that are representative of their communities without adding some kind of financial support. I mean, some of the stipends are so low that it's really not like you're getting paid for this wonderful volunteer opportunity. So that's,
Wait, we're not?
no, it's all in seltzer water as far as I'm told right now, but.
Unequal distribution, it looks like, the seltzer water.
Yeah. I'll bring- I brought my own tonight, but I do come to this building for seltzer
I
water.
like the wording of choice, that it's not a requirement, but that if school districts want to and are able to, as we know, there's a number of school districts out there that have money to burn. We happen to not be one of them. But it's more about reflective of the community. I don't know where that leads you in terms of voting,
I'm
because I
okay
don't know
with-
if you
yes.
get to like
Makes sense.
make a suggestion for change of language.
No, I think what Sarah said on the neighboring district and a stipend for childcare makes sense.
As long as there's choice, and then, yeah, see how the discussion, I'm curious to see the discussion, but I would support this unless anyone else objects, just because I think it could really help broaden who gets to be on a school board. Are we okay with that? Sorry, Barry. It's like-
And
All right. Did you have other ones you wanted to look at? What's
I
the?
didn't have anything else, and the ones that are not recommended by NYSSBA, I agree with NYSSBA.
I had one more that I don't really understand, or it doesn't really pertain to us, so I don't know what it means, but it's number 27. Or maybe it does pertain to us, but I don't really know what it's asking for.
7, give me
About
a
charter
second.
Does it
Okay.
mean that we don't give consent right now?
So let me just read, the resolve that the New York State School Boards Association supports legislation that would require local school district consent for new charter school applications in districts with a large percentage of charter students. You're right, I don't think.
Currently, public school districts don't have to give consent, but who doesn't, I don't know. I just don't really, and even after I read it, I don't necessarily understand.
Is there an option, Madeline, when you vote to abstain on some
Yeah,
of
that's
these?
what I was,
We can
because I did.
abstain.
I'm wondering, because this doesn't pertain to us, unless somebody's looking to set
Unless it
up a
would really
charter.
help some of our neighboring districts, like you just brought up
Yeah.
with this, with an issue that they're dealing with. Joe, do you know? You look like you know.
Well, so this is, you can see the proposals are by the Albany and Buffalo school boards. So those are districts where there are a lot of schools that, a lot of successful charter applications have taken place. And they may actually take physical school buildings away from the school districts to start a charter school. And it also, the money that would normally go to those school boards would go to the charter school with the students. So if there already are a lot of charter students and you open another charter school, it makes challenges for operation of your school district. So they're asking for some say in that.
Yeah.
Because right now, who has to say is the state education department has to say on granting charter applications. I believe at one time there was a quota on how many there could be total in the state. I don't know if that still is the case, but the state education department gets to decide. The school districts don't have a place at the table.
So this protects the public schools.
In the middle, it says the law requires that over a certain threshold, local consent should be required. However, in practice, it is not. Do we know what that means? Like,
It means that it's never been pushed back again.
so they're saying they're saying this is on the books, but it's not enforced, or there's.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Looks that way.
So this would be NYSSBA lobbying to essentially have a law that exists enforced.
In part, yes.
Okay. I'm not opposed to this unless,
I just think, I mean, again, it's like the fluffy language with
Yeah, it's
a
pretty-
large
it's pretty
percentage
opaque.
of charter schools. It's like, why can't we, in this tiny town, also be able to give consent if a charter school wanted to take part of our building?
yeah.
Right? So in a way, I just don't like the wording of the rationale because I feel like we should be able to have a say as well, not just the state.
So
Isn't
the
that what it
rest,
say?
Well, it says in districts with a large percentage of charter students. I don't know what that
I
really
got you.
means. You know
So
what I
that
mean?
there's already charter
Right.
schools operating
Right,
within those
so that means that
districts.
if someone wanted to open a charter here in Garrison and get the state to give access to our building, we have no say. The district has no say. The state could just say yes. And that's the way the current law is written.
Yes.
This resolution wouldn't protect us. It would only protect Albanese and Buffaloes, which is fine. I mean, I'm not worried about it here, but it's like, why not just go the whole hog?
I think because they're trying to say they're not opposed to the existence of charter schools.
Yeah,
They're just saying they don't want there to be more charter schools than non-charter schools.
right.
and they're looking to get support
Or just
for
large.
lobbying, so they might just
Yeah, I mean, I'm not
want little
opposed,
districts
it
like
just-
us not to oppose
yeah.
it, because it doesn't pertain to us. Maybe,
Right.
I don't know if that's what they're writing.
I mean, there is input from the community when a charter is going to be started. They have to have hearings and there's a number of things that have to take place. But the school district itself doesn't necessarily have a direct
Veto power.
impact on the process. The school board actually, I believe, has to help promote the existence of a charter school and to even offer its facilities to have the hearings.
I assume.
No, go ahead.
I assume an advocate of a charter school would expressly say that it would be ridiculous for a school district to have veto power, because the whole point of founding the charter school is that they think the district's not doing its job. So there's a direct conflict of interest in giving a school district, from the charter school's perspective, there's a direct conflict of interest in giving a school district veto power over the existence of the charter. So I don't think it's realistic to cut off the last part of the sentence because. So I assume that's part of why it's in there too.
I'll come back to the question of how do we want to vote on it, though? Do we want to abstain? We're fine with it? Do we want to support
I definitely think that
it?
it's a good protection for,
I agree, it may
especially
not
if it's
get
just
very
a-
far, Matt. It may not get very far in terms of lobbying efforts, like. All right, we're good? Others people wanted to look at? I had one because I think it's relevant to our district. And I am in favor of it, but proposed resolution 25, which is sunsetting. It's resolved that New York State School Boards Association supports legislation that would amend Article 18A of the General Municipal Law to permit school districts at their option to be necessary parties to payment in lieu of taxes pilot agreements. And Joe, I really brought this up because I wanted to get your take on it. We talked a lot about last spring about pilots and how we really don't have a say in them.
Yes, so the industrial development agencies, which are small nonprofit agencies that exist in every county, basically negotiate with a potential industrial or commercial client to come up with a reduced tax payment to incentivize them to locate or change their operations in that area. The difficulty with that is it has negative impacts as a result of the tax cap, because it is something that is added to and subtracted from the cap. So if there are changes in those pilot amounts, it can negatively affect a school district's ability to raise money. And you can see examples of places where those things didn't work out so well, and have been in the news. The Marlboro School District is one where they had a pilot agreement, and then the power plant went bankrupt, and then as a part of the bankruptcy proceedings, they went back and renegotiated the amounts that were owed, and the school district ended up with a big hole. The power plant that was the nuclear power plant that was operating in Hendrick Hudson, that made a very big impact on the tax levy for that school district. And the other thing that can happen, and this happened in the district where I was, you can have a entity go bankrupt that has a pilot agreement, and because it's still an official agreement, you have to include it in your tax cap calculations, but you can never collect the money. So it's important for school districts to have a say in this calculation, because it can have large impacts in the tax levy. The district, another district where I have worked, there was another large power plant that went bankrupt several times, and their pilot was up for renewal, and it represented a $4 million annual payment for that school district. And if the pilot wasn't renewed and it went back on the tax rolls, the public would get a 15% tax increase and not have to pay any more, but if they voted it down, there would be a $4 million hole in the budget. So it is important for the school districts to have a say. They currently don't. And they are typically the largest beneficiary of the pilot payments, because the school district taxes are the largest component of the taxes. So for us to not have any say in the pilot agreements and have it included as part of our operation for the tax cap doesn't make any sense.
Yes, this was a NYSSBA recommended resolution, and it's sunsetting, so we'll vote yes, and if we can get any other district to vote yes also, that would be great, right?
I think it also does highlight the importance of some of this stuff and how it can directly relate to our districts. I know a lot of these, 30-something don't look like they relate to us, but this one could have direct impact.
Related to the pilot one and like financial impact, I feel like last year, they propose this every year, the whole we should be in support of universal health care.
Yes.
And NYSSBA always says, no, that's a federal issue. I think last year we said to vote yes. I think we should vote for both of those. Their numbers, 33 and 34. But I think another reason is because I think it has financial impacts for a district when you have health care covered by a state instead of having to be covered by local taxpayers, which is a big part of our budget, obviously. So, I don't know. NYSSBA is recommending no.
Yeah.
We should not do 33 and 34.
I gotta agree with NYSSBA. I don't think that it's NYSSBA's role
To support the Health Act.
you can support the healthcare law, but that's certainly not public education's bailiwick to have a discussion about single-payer healthcare law. Like, we can all have our opinions on it. But I would say as a school board, you could make a case it has an impact on our funding. Other people would make a case it has a negative impact, it might have a negative impact on our funding. So I would probably stay away from those resolutions, along with NYSSBA's rationale on that, but.
Do you have any other thoughts on that? We want to add a vote on that? My thought is they won't necessarily, they didn't make it very far last year, did they? Right?
It didn't make it really far, but I do agree with Jocelyn on these two, because although it's not directly related to us, having students come in that have adequate healthcare insurance, that have food, will help with, getting an education, will help the overall success of the students. We don't have a lot of say in these, but, saying that, yes, we support this because we want our students, everyone, to come fed and with health insurance, to not have to worry about any of those things and focus on learning. I think it's good, but then again,
It's probably going to fail again. It said
It's
it
gonna
failed in
fail.
20 and
It'll
21,
fail.
but
I think the language is very broad in 33. It says we would support any legislation at the state or federal level that provides single payer. That's like, that feels like a really open-ended commitment.
Yeah, I just.
I'd like to see the legislation.
It's not, there isn't if there were a piece of legislation that Congress was debating, that we could.
New York is. The New York Health Act.
It
is
says the New York
still-
Health Act and any legislation. I'm just like uncomfortable with
On the
committing
state or
to any, that's like such an open-ended phrase.
But it's just supporting. It's just saying, yes, we support.
No, it says we'd support any legislation at the state or federal level that provides single-payer health care for all New Yorkers. So that could be like any law that does that and anything else, we by definition support according to this language. That could be like folded into another bill that we would then be on record saying we support. Because the language is so open-ended, it's saying any legislation. It's not saying the New York Health Act.
So what are you scared of? What kind of legislation?
I'm scared of signing our name to something that is so open-ended
like a
as.
military act that
Sure,
includes
anything.
it, but then
It's
it also
it's literally
starts
saying
a
any
war.
bill that would provide full single-payer health care for all New Yorkers. So that could be like,
Like an Inflation Reduction
Sure.
Act. If it was in there, it would have been,
it could be any, that's the point. It could be, I mean, you could keep listing examples and I'll say, yeah, because it's saying anything.
I know.
So
I
I'm
just-
uncomfortable with that.
God,
I don't
that
wanna-
makes me want to go through and read every resolution for all of the vague language that they have.
Well, that's one of the things that separates out these resolutions, I think, is that the ones that are being committed to are a little more tangible in terms of
So it's
saying.
like, we should tell Ontiora, get rid of any legislation. Just go with the New York
I mean, if it
Health Act.
said the New York State Boards Association support the proposed New York Health Act and single-payer health care for all New Yorkers, even
Then
that would
we'd
be
be
more
better.
specific. I don't know, maybe you think, do you think
propose
I'm being overly nitpicky? And I don't know.
I would, especially on the ones that haven't been recommend a change in language and see if they change it. What? We can file a rebuttal? I don't know if that's even worth
Is it
it.
September 17th, we can
Let's look at the,
post amendment?
let me look at
And
the.
October
It's
15th, we're gonna
timeline.
get to that one next, because we
Okay.
have one to add, but yes, that's October.
And is it only the author of these proposed resolution that can propose amendment, or can any district?
So September 16th is the deadline for submitting amendments and rebuttals to proposed bylaws and
I
resolutions.
mean, I think that's definitely a good change on that one.
I mean, I agree with you, the spirit of what you're saying.
No, but I think it's a good language change on
Yeah.
it, would be to get rid of any legislation. That's too broad.
So who wants to write the rebuttal?
The other question I had goes back to Sarah, what you were asking Madeline, which is like, does it dilute the power of things to sign on to things that aren't gonna work? To Kent's point, that this is This is more of like a moral statement than a tangible point. So leaving aside the debate as to whether people actually agree about this or not, just for the sake of argument, if everyone did agree with this, but it was doomed, does that dilute the power of the things that aren't doomed or not? I'm asking. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know the answer.
Right.
This is like how, and maybe, Madeline, this is a question we could bring back to NYSSBA. How do they prioritize these? Because, for example, proposed resolution number 2, wait, there's one in here that basically, that's about the meaningful reforms to the tax levy cap formula. That will have a major impact on our district and other districts around us and needs to happen.
Right. We'd
And I'd
rather have
love to
NYSSBA
see
working on that.
all of their, a majority of their legislative
Yeah.
arm, which I'm not assuming is not huge, focusing on tax levy cap reform, fund balance, making sure we can keep an increase in the undesignated fund balance level. These things will have major impacts on a lot of districts. And then we can decide on the local level how to improve the education from there. So, that's what I'm wondering
With this one
about.
on health, though, is it just moral or is it also fiscal, Joe?
I would say,
We don't know because there's no actual.
Yeah, there's nothing
but,
there.
There
but
is
in
a
the
bill.
I may be reading into it too much, but in the explanation, they do clearly say that they believe it's a national issue. Keep in mind, a state can't overspend their budget, a local municipality can't overspend their budget. However, the national government can. Not that we want to run up the deficit more. It's at, I think, somewhere around $30 trillion, but they do have the ability to do that. A state can end up in trouble if they're spending money on health and the federal government is not funding it. And then, okay, well, what do they not spend money on? Because they're again, they can't overspend their budget. So I think that explanation gives you important insight into why they're not in support of it. But Joe,
Yeah,
would you?
well, I think that that when you look at some of the main line items that are in the state budget, it is health and schools. So if you do universal health care for all, and you have the same bucket of money, where's it going to come from? It's going to come from the other items that are in the budget, which,
But that's an assumption, right? That no one has said there's.
But we're assuming that everything will work out if we support this, but we don't know because it's still pretty vague. So that's my point to like not voting for something that we can't say, well, let's run down what the actual impact is. I'm not aware of the New York State single payer law, so I can't comment on it, but I just feel like that we're stepping into an area where it's vague and where we're not actually sure what it means.
I have an idea, because this debate could continue for a very long time. And while interesting, why don't we look at what a rebuttal would be? And draft a rebuttal. We don't need to figure out exactly how we're going to vote until October. We just do this early on because it's fun. Look at what that is, see if we can put forth a rebuttal to change the language to something we would be comfortable with everyone voting for, and then discuss again.
I think the best thing would be one person volunteering to contact, Oneonta, and say, what do you want us to say? What would help this for you? Like, here's our problem with it. Like, what should a rebuttal look like? Because they've gotten burnt
for
twice in a
rebuttal?
row.
There is.
Yeah.
Just keep in mind, our next board meeting is not till the 21st, and the deadline for the submittal is the 16th.
Can we ask one board member to write the rebuttal? Does it need to be read and viewed by everyone and agreed upon? If we agree to assign this task to someone, does it then need to come back to a public meeting prior?
I don't think there's necessarily a requirement.
I
for
don't
that.
think there is.
I mean, we also don't even have to write a rebuttal. We have 6 people. We could just say, what do you want to do now? And if, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
34 is more specific than 33.
Yeah, but that one's more specific.
So 33, we're just removing any legislation, right? And if that's removed, it's fine? Is that what I'm hearing? Or no, Kent, you're saying that we
I don't
shouldn't?
know. I can't say yes or no right now. I don't know the New York Health Act at this point, so I'm not gonna commit to it. I don't, like Joe said, I'm not confident that 10 years from now, if that passed, that healthcare wouldn't start eating into education. So that would be my concern.
I think we need both healthcare and
Yeah,
education,
I mean,
right?
the budget will change,
I'm not
you know.
arguing with any of that. I just, I don't,
Bob, you want to help us out?
I don't think this is our issue.
There you go.
Nice.
All right.
So now we don't have to, we know we need to have the
Do the
public
kids
sit
sit
there.
very slow still in this room? I'm envisioning all these students sitting very still, the lights going on. All right.
What school is that?
I don't know. I only come here for the meeting part, and it's very quiet. All right, so do we have thoughts?
34, we hold on until we know how to proceed with it? I think we went over the rest, right? The others.
Yeah.
But
why-
the other option is if we right now say, let's decide, is it worth going for a rebuttal, or do we just vote yes or no now as a 6? Why
I'm
prolong
inclined to
this?
say no as well, because mostly, I mean, I understand, I agree with Kent's arguments and Matt's on the language, but also, I really want them to focus on the things that are gonna impact our district, and I don't think there's a huge group of NYSSBA people
not gonna
out
go
there.
anywhere.
And it's not gonna go anywhere, so I don't even wanna waste their time in looking at it. I really, the ones I wanna see are the ones that will impact fund balance and the tax levy cap. So maybe for next meeting too, we could look at, maybe we'll figure out a way to find out how they prioritize these too, because that would be useful.
Yeah, that's how it
So
works.
we're just going to vote no on both of these, so we don't have we don't have to come back to it.
I mean, I don't know, what Kent said is true. I don't know enough about the New York Health Act. I mean, I'll read it, and I'd like to learn more about it.
Because we have 6 people, then I really.
I'd also,
As it stands, then I would agree that we vote no, with given the vague language, and I agree with you that there are other things that really need to be focused on, and I think that healthcare is really important, but I don't see, voting yes on this is gonna change anything.
All right, if we want to bring it back, though, we do have more time after this, so write to me and we can look at it again.
I'd sort of actively like to learn more,
Okay.
just because I don't feel,
Do you want to write a rebuttal?
no. Because I don't know enough about any of
Yeah.
it. Like, I'd like to find out, from like, an advocate of single-payer healthcare, would they say that this is an intelligent way to go about single-payer healthcare? That's not a rhetorical question.
No, the New York Health Act just adds a tax to everybody.
No, but I'm
It's
saying,
not going
like,
to keep the budget the same. It's going to increase the New York State budget.
they threw in the phrase single payer. They could have just said healthcare, right? So clearly this is advocating for single payer. It's not saying we want healthcare for all New Yorkers, saying we want single payer
That's what
healthcare.
the New York Health Act does. That's why.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what I'd be curious to hear from experts on single payer. So leaving aside the enormous debate over single payer, which is far from a unanimously supported issue in the district, the state, or the country, but let's just assume for the sake of argument that it was unanimously supported and that everybody wanted single-payer healthcare and thought that was the best avenue towards healthcare. I then would want to know from advocates of single-payer, is this a successful path towards single-payer? Like, do you think that this is the venue for it? Will this advance that legislation? Like, I don't know enough about either the law or whether, in fact, this is an effective plan for what they're trying to achieve.
I don't think they care if NYSSBA.
Or are they just trying to make a
The New York
statement?
Health Act advocates who are here in Phillipstown,
Right.
right, who are passing it at the town.
Right.
And Cold Spring also passed it.
Sure.
Right? You know, they would say,
Every
yeah,
voice
anyone
helps.
who can come and help us is like an added benefit, but
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Okay, so
But like
that's the
you've
answer.
said-
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
does NYSSBA need to work on it?
So that's sort of the answer to my question, is like, would they say this is effective? But
Well,
it
but
still
they're
goes
the
back to
advocates
Sarah's
of it.
question about dilution, which I don't have an answer to.
Yeah,
do a
that
little
is a
bit-
good question
Let's do a
overall.
little bit more research, and we can have a little bit of a follow-up discussion at our next meeting prior to when Madeline votes as to whether these, it really, if we're diluting things or not. So,
Wait, because
and you're welcome to do as much research as
will.
you'd like.
I will,
And
seriously,
bring it
yeah.
back.
Yeah, I'm not interested in writing the rebuttal at the moment because I don't have it done, but I'm happy to do the research and to learn more about all the things I just asked, because I don't know the answers to those
Awesome.
questions.
Can I just say, since we have a short agenda anyway, our neighbor Beacon also proposed number 41. I'm not saying we should vote yes. I just think it's an interesting one that everyone should look at, because if it's going to be left to districts, it's just an important thing to think about.
I'm going to just make sure it's clear what we're talking
Yeah.
about. This one supports legislation at the state level that would set limits on the start time for schools to be no earlier than 8 a.m. And on onset, that sounds interesting, but then you get down, and I agree with the rationale that, with bus driver shortages and things, I mean, there's a lot of issues. Well, there's things at a local level that should be allowed to be decided when they want to do their sports
I just think
teams.
it's important to look at, because Beacon
Yeah.
recommended it, and they are the neighbors who also recommended the other one, who are in favor of, so.
Does anybody feel strongly about
I
it?
think that's got to be left to local school districts. I think everybody has building challenges, overcrowding in certain schools. I mean, you have high schools where kids are playing sports, they're traveling distances during weeknights. I don't think that that's something the state should.
Yeah, I think it always comes back to the sports,
And I
too.
bring it up to the school, because it's something the district should always revisit.
Yeah.
I mean,
Is-
if we want it, we don't happen to, we start pretty late, so
Our middle school starts an hour after
Haldane's
the
does,
Haldane's
yeah.
Middle School, so.
It's amazing. It's just an important issue.
My
that-
child's not awake when Haldane's.
At the risk of being overly contrarian, their rationale contradicts their rationale on the public health proposal. Like their rationale on the stuff on the pandemic is directly in opposition, in my view, to their rationale for this. Because in this, they say the committee acknowledged the health and academic benefits, but we think this belongs to local districts.
Yeah.
On masking, they say the opposite. They say we're deferring to public health. Local districts should not have a say. So I'm less persuaded by their explanation here, because it runs contrary to their explanation like 10 resolutions above, when they rejected the districts who said we want vaccination exemptions and we want local control over masking. And they used literally the exact opposite reasoning. So I think their rationales, same with 33 and 34.
Yeah.
I'm not persuaded that they think it's a national issue. It's clearly not a national issue. I mean, it is, but it's also a state and local issue. But they ducked it by saying it's a national issue. So I'm not totally compelled by the explanations. I think it's good for us to kind of read and decide for ourselves. In this case, I agree with what you said, Ken. I think it should be local, but I'm sort of disillusioned by their own.
I mean, look at the rationale that Beacon put down. Given the districts, this is Beacon, the people who proposed it, must coordinate their schedules for extracurriculars, including sports. This is not a decision that can be successfully implemented at the local level. I mean, that they're saying this is precisely why we need you to do it, because all of you around the town are saying it's too hard.
Well,
just
one district couldn't do it and then have all the other districts
Right.
not, because then you couldn't play sports against them.
Exactly.
It's driven by sports, high school,
Yeah.
secondary, Look, the research would support a later start for secondary schools. So I do understand that. However, it's not practical. If you're going to have sports and with the days getting shorter, it just wouldn't be possible, so.
I just want to say, Matt, I'm impressed with how thoroughly you read all the rationales. That's awesome.
Just now,
It's
too.
interesting.
He's doing it as we are.
I think it's interesting. But there is an inconsistency. I mean, on number 35, they say the committee believes it's most appropriate to leave public health decisions up to public health experts, which is not what they're doing on 8 a.m. start time. But
Again, I really just want the fund balance to increase.
public health experts definitely think that the start time should be later, for the record.
Yeah,
They all agree on that, but that's all right.
Can we go back? Can we go back? I went back to see last year resolution and how these two were voted on. The one regarding single-payer healthcare, we voted yes as what we discussed, and 43% of the district voted yes. 57 voted no. So it it was almost 50-50. It was almost there, and we're probably gonna get something similar this year. So maybe we should take a little bit longer to look at it.
Was the language the same? Was the resolution the same
I'll
last
send it.
year?
It's I think they changed the language.
Why don't you send that over and then, so we can all look at it, do our research into
And,
all of healthcare.
And then the other one regarding the Child Health Plus program did not even come up for a vote. It didn't have enough to come up for a vote. So I'll send this.
Okay. So, anyone else on NYSSBA's proposed resolutions? I'm going to keep this moving along. We also have a proposed resolution we're looking to add. We've reviewed this in public before, the safe gun storage. Thank you. I believe Matt was instrumental in writing this. It's been a little while. It's here. Everyone has it. Unless there's any objections, we're going to go ahead and submit this as presented, right, Madeline? As a, help me with the language, what is it when we submit? A late resolution. So they would vote down that at the meeting.
Wait, so this is related to this, seriously. There's another resolution that has to do with the gun safety and this and that. Is there any way to not propose a whole nother resolution on gun storage, but fold it in? You know what I mean? Like, so that we just go to that district, we're like, why don't you add safe storage? And so then it's not like watering down, as everyone keeps talking about. You know what I mean? I forget which one that is. Maybe it's 20.
I gotta find
So
the
number 20.
20?
So folding in, suggesting an amendment
have to
to
reach
their
out to the
language. We can do both. If they say no to that, then we can bring up the late
Right.
resolution.
So just to clarify procedurally, rebuttal doesn't sound like the right word for that, though, is it?
Amendment?
It's an amendment or change in language?
Or rebuttal, and there may be some clarification we need to get on that, so.
Why don't we get clarification on that and then bring it back to see if we could do that?
I would just say that I think it might be, these are definitely state level things, background checks, red flag laws, and restrictions, and safe storage is a local issue.
Yeah, you
usually.
just read that.
Oh,
That's
okay,
what I was
sorry.
gonna say. No, that's right.
But-
You read my mind.
But maybe safe storage should be a state issue. I don't know. I just didn't want to have us to like throw something else in and have it dilute number 20.
So number 20 is not going to be diluted because NYSSBA reviewed it,
And so
approved
they're
it, right?
Well, don't you still vote on it then?
We vote on it, but NYSSBA is all for it. So if
You're
we
it's most
fold
likely going
it
to be,
in,
yeah.
so NYSSBA, and I'm sure NYSSBA will be fine with ours. We can try and ask, and if that fails, we'll bring it in as a late resolution.
Let's look at process for it. We can always bring it back. We've got some time. The late resolution deadline again is in October, correct? Not correct, okay. Okay. Are we all good on the NYSSBA stuff? This is always a fun discussion. All right, then I'm going to close this discussion and move to public comment. Public comment is intended for members of the community to speak openly and voice concerns in accordance with Policy 3220 of the Garrison Union Free School District. Any person wishing to speak shall comply with all provisions of this policy. Comments about specific school personnel or individual students is a violation of board policy. Concerns regarding students or personnel should be discussed privately with the superintendent or appropriate administrator. Comments should be limited to 3 minutes, and speakers are asked to conduct themselves in a respectful manner. The board will listen to comments but will not engage in dialogue. Any necessary follow-up will be noted and provided through the appropriate channel. Members of the public wishing to comment during board meetings are asked to place their name and town of residence on the sign-in sheet. Commenters will be invited to the podium to address the board. Anybody want to come sign it? You're good? Okay. You good, Poppy? Okay. All right, then, I'm going to keep moving on. Acceptance of minutes. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby accept the minutes of the regular meeting of August 24th, 2022 as presented. May I have a motion, please?
Seconded.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Nays, abstentions. Okay. Moving on now, we have the personnel consent agenda. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of Carl L. Albano, does hereby approve the items of the personnel consent agenda as presented. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All Carl?
There's just one appointment that we're recommending. A certified guidance counselor, Christine Ferreira, did some work for us last year on a per diem basis. So Mrs. Amig would like to appoint her again, only as needed as a per diem sub. And she did very good work for us last year.
Would she just be filling in for counselors? Is that correct? Or does she just do any kind of sub work that you need?
She's happy to do a little bit of everything. She covered some classes and did really well. So her certification happens to be guidance.
All in favor? Any other questions? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Nays? Abstentions? CSE, CPSE recommendations. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District approve the Committee on Special Education, CSE, and the Committee on Preschool Special Education, CPSE, recommendations and student placements. May I have a motion, please?
So moved. Seconded.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions? Okay, next, we have a request for approval of amended agreement Edutek. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of Carl L. Albano, Superintendent, does hereby approve the amended agreement with Edutek Ltd. For on-site IT services for the 2022-2023 school year as presented. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Seconded.
Thank you.
Sure. So basically, we started back in July with an agreement with Edutek for a person on site 1 day per week, providing IT services. In August, when we received the resignation from Mike Semertano, and as of now, we have not decided on moving forward with a search and a replacement. Therefore, to support students, teachers, administration, we're recommending 3 days per week, so it's increasing Edutek. I did ask for a 60-day cancellation clause with the company, and they agreed to that. It's in the language, because if we do decide to fill that vacancy at some point, we could cancel this service or reduce it. But for now, I do think 3 days a week is needed, just to support all the day-to-day needs.
Any questions for Carl on the Edutek contract as presented? Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions? We come to our second public comment of the evening. Oh, okay. Do you need me to read my whole paragraph again? Okay. You remember it from the first time?
Thanks, yeah.
Great. Podium's all yours.
No judgment for keeping her up late, and I'm really grateful. No judgment for keeping her up late, but we're going straight to bed. Mom's out of town. Thank goodness Matt Spicer doesn't referee my logical fallacies in my household. Be a real problem. I'm excited for the school. The school's beautiful. It's great. She's loving it. One of our friends has a little brother. One of her classmates has a little brother who's in the pre-K. And I was just talking about how to that kid, I saw that kid, how excited he was, that he had friends next door. Just like it's cool to get kids involved in the community a year earlier. I've heard a couple comments through the summer. I know that like last fall last spring was tough. There was a big push on the budget, and clearly there was some, I think it's fair to say, damage done. Like, there's just some hurt feelings. I don't know what we're calling it, but it wasn't real slick, in terms of how that happened. And one of the things that I heard over the summer was just like continued kind of raw feelings about communication. And I was just thinking, like with San Martino, you run a team that's on a seasonal schedule. Somebody leaves in August, like you're up against a wall. But there was a lot of communication around, like, this is why we have a director of technology in the building. It saves us money. This is the value to it, and it helped us get away from Edutek. So, like, if we're in a jam, I just think something like that, or personnel changes, or people went to the mattresses to like get budget approved, for a school psychologist. Well, now we have a part-time school psychologist. Like, just like those changes, I think are important to convey to the community. And I don't know what the appropriate forum is on that. I don't know if it's Carl or Allison, like doing a video. I think Parrot Square is awesome. if you're in the community, but I don't think that people that have strong opinions about what happens in the school are going to be like downloading the Parent Square app. So just whatever we can do to help keep that conversation going, so that if there are further budgetary needs, it's great to say it doesn't impact how much money would come into the school. If we had this shift from 30,000 exempt to 50,000 exempt, like those sorts of things that will impact people in the community. They will have hard feelings about it. Like, this has just been proven, and I think that we should be overly communicative, and I would challenge the board to be overly communicative on those issues right now. And that's it. But thank you. I appreciate it. I know it's thankless. Can't even imagine what the stipend would be, but probably no better than the planning board. It can't be that great. But thank you. Really appreciate it. And y'all have a good night.
Thank you. Okay, next we're going to move on to board member comment. All right, guys. Jocelyn? No comment. Okay, Madeline? Courtney?
It's fun to be in our new space.
Okay. Ken?
No comment.
Matt?
No comment.
Okay, I have no further comment this evening. Next, we move on to enter executive session. Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby enters into executive session for the purpose of discussing the confidential building level safety plan. May I have a motion, please? Okay, and all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Nays, abstentions. Okay, we will adjourn executive session without any further action being taken. Please log out and shut down your computers first.